I want to talk a little bit about vocal health. Since we've discussed the pharyngeal space, you may find yourself speaking at bigger volumes. Now, it shouldn't hurt your voice, but I do think it's important just to think a little bit about maintaining your good vocal health, because we want to protect your vocal cords. We want to make sure that when you stand up to speak, you sound good. And there's a tremendous irony, because as I'm speaking, I'm quite sick. And you may have heard it a little bit in my voice or some of the times I've been coughing. Nevertheless, you can continue, even when sick, to treat your vocal cords well and get the most out of them. So I just want to spend a very bit of time talking about some things that you can do before you deliver your speech to help warm up, give you a few extra warm-ups to be working with, and then a few tips on dealing with a sore throat or when you're sick. So generally, in terms of vocal health, you want to be drinking lots of water. That should be a given, but make sure you're drinking water. Stay nice and hydrated. Certainly, you want to do, if you're going to be speaking at volume, do warm-ups before you deliver a speech. And it makes sense when you think about it very abstractly. You wouldn't go for a 2-mile run without stretching or warming up a little bit first. You wouldn't do some sort of physical activity without sort of warming up, getting your body ready for the physical task that you're about to engage in. You should think of your body and your vocal cords in the same way. So I've mentioned in the past that the persuasive speech, when done here at the University of Washington, is outdoors. And they have to speak in an outdoor space and draw in listeners. And so I will do lectures outdoors, and I'll do them for very large audiences. And so I speak at volume for a very long time. Good projection for easily an hour. And that's fine, I can do that if I warm up. I've got lots of examples of, now in my notes for those lectures, I have to write on there, don't forget to warm up, dummy, because I don't like warming up, but it makes a huge difference. So if I go do an outdoor lecture for an audience of 150 or 200 and I don't warm up, I will speak at projection for, I'll have good volume for probably the first 15 minutes, and then from about 15 to 20 minutes, it gets hoarse and raspy. And then from 20 minutes on, it starts getting better again. But I have this lull as my vocal cords are really struggling to keep up with the volume of air I'm shoving over them. And so I've got lots of water, and I'll constantly be drinking it. But if I do deliberate warm-ups before I go do that outdoor lecture, I can go an hour and have no problems whatsoever. So warm-ups are very, very important. And you can do anything for warm-ups. Certainly, in the informative speech, we talked about practicing reading aloud poetry and other speeches. That's a great warm-up. Then you can also do just tongue twisters, or unique New York. One that when I coached, we did all the time. You can choose to do it or not. This tongue twister is good for warming up, and also really places a premium on good articulation. I am a mother pheasant plucker. I pluck mother pheasants. I am the most pleasant mother pheasant plucker to ever pluck a mother pheasant. You don't want to screw that one up, right? So it's you can do that with seashells and seashores or whatever you have, but find a set of tongue twisters that you can run as a way of warming up. Certainly stretching, rolling your head, loosening up, make sure you're loose. Stretching your mouth, right? You want to make sure that when you're speaking, you're not keeping your mouth closed too much. Hopefully you haven't gotten in a horrible accident where your jaw is wired shut. That would be difficult. But in general, you want to make sure that this is another resonance chamber. It's probably not as important for our purposes as the pharyngeal space, but you want to make sure that your mouth is opening nice and wide, so make sure you warm it up and stretch. Now there's going to be certainly a couple of times when you need to speak and you're under the weather. And that happens a fair bit. So what are you doing when you're dealing with a sore throat? Well, one anecdote or something that's been passed down to me that I take to heart, although I don't have much evidence to demonstrate it, it makes sense to me, but avoiding dairy, just avoiding anything that sort of builds up on those vocal folds and would add to raspiness. Because when you're ill, those vocal folds are going to get inflamed, and so they don't clip sound as well, and so we want to avoid stuff that's just going to add to the raspiness of that. Again, if you're sick and you have to deliver a speech, lots of water. Another sort of old wives' tale is tea with honey. When I've lost my voice and I have to do speeches, I do tea with honey, and I found it works. It could just be I'm mentally doing something because I really don't like honey, and so drinking that slurry is like, well, I better be good now because I'm paying the price and drinking this awfulness. I do like tea, but not with honey. But you want to make sure that if you're speaking, have lots of water, do whatever is going to help. Generally avoid caffeine and carbonated beverages in the speaking encounter. What you really want to do is avoid masking it. So many years ago when I was a kid, I had a summer job doing dinner theater, and I mean sparkly cummerbunds and top hats and 60s Broadway show tunes and the whole 9 yards. And there was a woman who had been doing this for a number of years. Old hat at this, very talented, but her thing was belting stuff out. And so she would get a very sore throat, and I think they still have it on the market, Chloraseptic, which is this, it's a cough suppressant, I think. Basically, it's a topical anesthetic. And so she would just basically put tons of Chloraseptic in her throat when it was sore, so she couldn't feel how painful it was when she was belting out this music. Now, you don't want to do that. You're sacrificing long-term vocal health for short-term gain. So far better to sort of, and we don't have to do that as much in speaking as maybe a singer would have to. But you want to avoid masking the problem. Take good care of your vocal cords. Warm up. Warm up in any case, and certainly if you're sick, make sure you've got something there to soothe, because you're trying to sort of maintain hydration, but also not put any additional substance, milk or carbonated, sugary water on those vocal folds. So that's pretty much the last bit I want to talk about in terms of delivery. The final lecture will just be wrapping up this section of the course and getting you ready for our final stint in week 10.